All right. Hey, everybody. Steve Green here. My guest, Carlee Meyers. DAIS. What to figure out what that means. Anyway, it is Education Live Thursday, but wait, it's Monday. Can you believe it? This is a special edition because Carlee couldn't make it on a Thursday. And I thought it was very, very important to bring her into the show because I think she's got a lot to say. She's been a frequent guest in the Make the Grade universe. In fact, you want to hear a little trivia, Carlee? With today's, whatever you want to call it, we're doing today, event, you are now tied for first place in the most times being a guest in my stuff. How about that,
what?
Huh? Yeah, it's an incredible thing here. And look who says hi.
Oh, hello, Melissa.
Hello, our friend Melissa. Yes. So let me get this going here. Let me play the theme song. Hello, Melissa. Great to have you. So let's do this right here. Let's get back on cue. And so this is Education Live, Monday, usually Thursday. Today we're going to be talking about stress. Stress. Anybody stressed? A reason to be stressed? Legitimate reason, not legitimate. It happens. It's not what causes it. It's how you cope with it. At least I'm going to throw that out there. We have an expert in the field. Living it, working it, helping people every day. So let's just get right to it. Carlee Meyers, what does DAIS stand for?
Diplomate of the American Institute of Stress.
Oh, dang. So you got to take a test or something? Is it like an exam?
It's a professional affiliation. It's a really good organization. Yeah.
It is probably. So let me give you a little background here. Carlee has a long history of helping people. She's got a company called Stresslessco, which is stresslessco.com. I'll let her tell you really more about it. But what I've learned is this is just about helping people. She does this through group circumstances, individual circumstances. She has a system, a 7-step system, proprietary system she developed based on her own experience, kind of her intuition working with people, some professional background as well. So I think it's safe to say she knows what she's talking about. And she's walking the walk. So why don't you, in your own words, just tell us basically what's a typical day look like for you, if there is such a thing?
Oh, a typical day. So that's
that's
too
hard a question to start out with.
Yeah. So I was anticipating like an introduction, but a typical day.
Well, that was the introduction. That was my introduction.
Yeah. So, a typical day for me is there is no typical day, I would say. But I will say that, it's important. I think we've talked about this in the past for us as humans to have a grounding routine where we are creatures of habit. So for me, I start each day by managing my energy. I do a few different activities. I take breaks throughout the day. Just before this, Facebook Live, before this training, my dog and I went on a walk. And so my typical day, consists of starting and ending and throwing little sprinkles of energy management throughout my day. And then, of course, I'm working with clients. I'm hopping on phone calls, on Zooms, and supporting, a lot of leaders who are exhausted and overworked to not only manage their energy, but also learn those tactical tools so that they can experience more free time, more efficiency and more prosperity themselves.
So is there any niche or particular population of people that you feel you help the most, or is there some, how would you describe this?
Yeah, so I love to work with female leaders. So I love working with business owners, doesn't matter what size. I love working with executives, and I love working with managers. So people who are in leadership positions in their lives. I even work with people who, and leader kind of shows up anywhere, right? So if we're the leader of our families, so those are, as long as you're a leader, you're definitely my person. Those are the types of people that I really, really love working with, and I specialize in working with.
So how long have you been involved in this? When did Stresslessco come together? Why did it come together? How did it come together? Where did it come together? The 5 W's and H of Stresslessco. What's the story here?
Yeah, so we actually started as a business about 5 years ago. Um, and I'm not going to go into my whole story. I think we could go into past podcast episodes or past
Mm-hmm.
Facebook Lives as to why I started the company. But the short of it is that I was experiencing my own struggle, and the mainstream approaches that we hear about all the time, therapy, meditation, yoga, changing the diet, hitting the gym, right? All of those things were not working for me. And
Hmm.
they, finally came to a boiling point where I was exploring, and I finally figured out what worked for me. And there was no one size fits all. It's my biggest learning of my life thus far. And yet at the same time, we as humans need structure. And so that's really where my 7-step system ended up being born. It was born out of that realization that there's no one size fits all, and yet we still need some structure. We still need some guidelines, some guidance to get where we want to go.
So tell us about the 7 steps, at least as much as you want to get into it. And does everybody work through these the same, or is it? I mean, as you said, no
Yeah.
one size fits all, right? So maybe one person needs step 1, 3, 6, and 8. Well, there's no 8. 1, 3, 6, and 7. Somebody else. I assume everybody starts at 1, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So can
So
you briefly describe what that is? And by the way, here, check this out. Setting
impressive.
the mood. We're setting the
Impressive.
mood here. So 7
Yeah.
steps. So how's that work?
Seven steps. So every single one of my clients goes through all 7 steps. Now each step is unique to the individual, and that's where the one size fits all doesn't jive, right? So
Hmm.
each individual takes what they will and leaves the rest from each step. So step 1 is to deepen your spiritual understanding. And we've talked about this on past episodes, but it's really about being able to have something greater than yourself to hand off the things that are outside of your control, whether it's politics, whether it's coronavirus, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, really important. Step 2 is to identify your blocks. So, what is really stressing you out? Truly. And then let's go a step deeper and saying, okay, what's beneath the surface? How have I created more suffering? And so you can see how these don't necessarily lend themselves to everyone's going to do the same thing, right? So for me, my block may be a limiting belief around money, as an example. We hear about that all the time. For someone else, it may be their block is a relationship, right? So it could, for each individual, it's very, very different. And it's about getting to, okay, here's the initial stressor. What's beneath the surface? How have I created more suffering for myself?
Hmm.
Yeah.
My
And
oh, go ahead. Keep going. Keep
oh,
going.
I was going to say, I can go through all 7 steps, or we can pause in between each one. That's up to
Well, let
how
me
you
let
want
me
to
let me
structure.
let me take it in this direction for a second, because
Yeah.
a large fraction of my subscribers and listeners, and if I can use the word fans, are typically parents, often mothers, women, who have kids in school. And if you are a parent and you have kids in school, by definition, there's some stress comes with that, right? Even when it goes great, you have the best student in the world, there's still things that happen. Is there anything? I mean, anybody can plug into what you're saying because they can mold it to within your framework. Is there something if a parent's saying, yeah, like a kid's constantly stressing me, it's always something. What would you say to someone like that? What would be your first kind of just take a breath? Like, what would be the first entry there?
So when we're in fight, flight, or freeze mode, the first thing that goes out the window is our critical thinking. We aren't able to be good problem solvers. We're not able to show up as our best self, the best version of a parent that we could possibly be. So my initial response is to say, let's get you out of fight, flight, or freeze mode. Let's get that critical thinking back so that you can rise into your strengths as a leader, whether that is as a parent or somewhere else in your life. But
Hmm.
thinking about that, that's really when we would talk about one of the key practices that we teach at the Stressless company, which is creative stress reduction. And that is, any activity that gets us out of fight, flight, or freeze mode and into a state of play or flow, aka rest and digest. And so that can, again, be anything. It can be playing with your dog, it can be going on a walk, it can be gardening. It could be I have a light bright on my desk, right? It could be adding new light brights to like pegs to my little mini light bright. It literally can be anything. And so you do that to get yourself back into rest and digest mode. You get the physiological response down so that there you go. Yes, you got the fidget spinner. 100%. Same thing.
Do you really
Creative
have a
stress
light bright on
reduction.
your desk, or were you just saying that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You missed it.
Let me see.
Held
Let's
it
see.
up.
Oh, ooh.
See if I can turn it on. I don't know. You can. It's hard to
Ooh.
tell with the lighting. Yeah. This is a crown. This is my interpretation of a crown with gems on the top.
Very geometrically symmetrical.
Yes.
You
Yeah. I
might
was
say
playing
something about
around
how
with
you
that.
think, analyzing it. But so basically, you're talking about a pattern interrupt. So I'm a parent. I'm getting my kids just drive me up a wall. I'm getting angry. We're yelling and screaming. There's got to be something that just breaks that up, and then you can reposition in a better place. Whether it's just, hey, I got to get out of here for 2 minutes, or because we don't
Yeah.
want people doing. I assume you're going to agree with this. Is going like down the wrong path, like breaking open a bottle of scotch or whatever, because
Right.
that's just masking the anxieties and not really solving the cause.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And I would say,
right.
like in that scenario, if I were having that conversation with the parent that you're describing, I would say, okay, the first thing that we're going to do together is we're going to create a template, a script for you. The script being, I'm not pleased with what you've just done, depending on what kind of scenario it is. Let's say the siblings are fighting and someone hits someone upside the head, right? That's my niece and nephew would do something like that, right? I'd be like, I'm not pleased with what just happened, what just transpired, but I need a minute and I will be back in 5 minutes or 1 minute or whatever, and give them that communication that they know they're not off the hook, but you need time to gather your thoughts. You need time to.
Interesting. Well, I'll give you a common thing. In fact, 2 hours ago, I was on the phone with a parent talking about this. Is the scenario where the kid just doesn't want to do his homework or her homework? The parent and the child argue for 45 minutes. Start your homework. Get your homework. Get in there. Do your homework. The homework would have taken 10 minutes to just go in and do. And I've brought this up probably 20 times in conversations with people because it is so common. Sometimes it's a difference of priorities. Obviously, sometimes it's more important for the parent that the child's doing something than the child cares about it. But I love the idea, though. So basically, you're giving people kind of a pre-made pattern interrupt. I'm going to use that word again because that's the psychology term that they can, and it communicates to themselves, hey, I got to get out of here for a second. But it also doesn't just make it an anger thing. Like they're not just storming out of a room. So they're also communicating to the kid, listen, we're not done, like you said. We got to work this out. I just got to go take care of something for a second. When I come back, we're going to pick this up and hopefully get it solved. Great advice. And that can be used with so many different things.
Yeah, and I would say just a caveat there is like, so you would have that written in your phone. You would have that written down because when you're triggered, your brain's going to be like, what was that? I don't even remember because it was you're in a triggered state, right? Critical thinking goes out the window. So if you have to pull it up on your phone, you can read it. You're like, I'm not done with you right now, But the caveat to that after
You just
you
hold the
read
phone
that,
up.
you're just like, not done, right? But once you do that, that is your cue to implement however long of creative stress reduction you need. So if you said, I will be back in 60 seconds, well, then you've got 60 seconds to implement creative stress reduction. If you got
Right,
5 minutes, you got 5 minutes. And so you have to, and you can come back. Let's say you say, I'm going to be talking to you in 1 minute. And after 1 minute, you're still in a triggered state. You can come back and you say, I know I said 1 minute. I need about 10 more, right? And so you have these kind of scripts or these pathways that you've already scripted out for yourself so that you can show up in your strengths as a parent.
My guest, Carlee Meyers, Steve Green here, the Make the Grade Educational Live Special Edition on Monday. If you're out there listening or watching and you want to make a comment, just type it in. You may have to click on that link, that StreamYard, that's Facebook link, so we know who you are. But if you have any questions or anything, I'm going to make an assumption here that what changes isn't necessarily the stressors out in the world. It's how people cope with them, right?
Yeah,
Maybe not
I would say.
100%. I mean, yeah, I mean, some days there's more, but you're never going to live in a stress-free world.
Right.
Hence the brilliance of the name Stress Less. So, from a timing standpoint, if somebody's just, is it take a month to get good at this, or maybe good isn't the right word, but is there an expectation that someone might have, like, hey, I got to get help, or I need to partner with somebody who can get me going in the right direction? Is this like 3 weeks later they're open to cope with it better? 6 months later, a year later, is it an ongoing thing? What's your take on this?
So the work that I do with my clients is a lifetime's worth of work. That's my initial, response to that. However, as you're implementing your learnings, as you're showing up and you're doing the work, you are going to experience relief. You're going to experience change. And I love that you brought up, that there is outside stressors and they're not necessarily going to go away. But the thing that my clients really experience the most is they kind of have this aha about is that there's a lot of stress in our lives that we have control over, that we can get rid of, but we never realized that we have control over or that we can get rid of it. And so the work that I'm doing with many of my clients is to say, how have I, again, that question that I brought up a few times so far is like, how have I created more suffering for myself? How have I, what stressors are in my life that I have control over? And can I start doing something about that? And that's when they start to experience some deep relief. Like that's when the stressors really start dropping. When we start, one by one, taking out those stressors that are totally within our control and addressing them. And that way, when there's a big stressor that is completely outside of our control, whether it's a pandemic or whether it's something unexpected in our family or whatever it is, when there's that stressor that's outside of our control, we're able to cope quicker because that big stressor, that outside of our control stressor isn't piled on top of, all these other things. It's just that one that is on our plate. It's that one thing that we need to manage or that one or two things that we need to manage rather than 15 things.
So it's not unlike, I don't know, let's say cardio conditioning where, if you're completely out of shape and you try to run 5 miles, you can't make it a half a mile, but after a while you build up, and your muscles get stronger and your heart gets stronger. So in the same way, your stress coping machinery builds up, and you get better and better at it. I'll tell you a quick story. And this was always a good lesson to me. I remember this was years ago. I was at an airport. I was waiting for the flight, and we're in that gate area. And the stewardess, whatever airline person comes on this, he goes, I'm sorry, everybody, but the flight's delayed 30 minutes. And the range of reactions from people were like everything across the map. Some people were like storming up to the desk screaming and yelling. Some people couldn't have cared less. Some people said, hey, that's cool. I can go over to the bar and have another drink. Some people were like oblivious. It was like a microcosm, I don't know, 150 people in this little area of like all the ranges of ways that people could react to the exact same stimuli. And I get it, it's a half hour, right? But it is what it is. I know some people probably had legitimate reasons to be upset. Maybe they get a connecting flight or something. But the difference of people's reaction was really striking. And at the time, I was taking a class, basically a psychology class that was studying this sort of thing. So it was like this sort of random observational experiment, and it just fit right in. And I never, didn't talk to anybody or anything about it, like in this group, like why you're reacting this way. But I think this is just sometimes how people are wired. Mm-hmm. Some people were just going to react obviously differently to the same stimulus as other people, which probably exacerbates some of these things or mitigates it depending on what your mindset is.
Yeah, or your experience.
Yes, right, and what you've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
What would you consider success for somebody that you work with? And I know that's a very gray definition, but if somebody is coming to you and you know, at what point do you think they're making progress, or they're
Yeah.
more independent? Is there a checkpoint or something, a checklist of something you look for?
Yeah, and actually, I do have a checklist,
Oh,
believe it or not.
who would have
So,
thought?
yeah,
Yes.
so, just to preface this, many people that come to me, um, they're experiencing challenges like they get so involved in their work that they forget to meet their basic needs. Like they're like, oh, I just have to finish this last email. Meanwhile, they've been holding their bladder for the last hour and a half. They're
Hmm.
skipping meals, or maybe they're skipping meals, and then maybe when they finally eat, they're overeating. So they get so engrossed in their work that they forget to meet their basic needs, or what they're doing.
Hmm.
Sometimes they find themselves, snapping at loved ones, right? That's when your kid does something crazy, and what's your first reaction? To yell. And so they find that it's really difficult to, in the moment, identify their needs and communicate them. And so when we're talking about, and that's just two examples of a few that could really show up, we're talking about what the successes look like. I would say is one, you're meeting your basic needs on a regular basis. You're remembering to say, oh, I'm going to put a pause on this work so I can go to the bathroom. It takes me 3 minutes, right?
Hmm.
Um, I'm eating my meals regularly. I'm taking care of those basic needs. I'm also able to communicate with the people around me effectively and efficiently. So that they're able to understand and support me. I'm able to, a lot of the folks that I work with can struggle in environments where other people's emotions and energy are off. So if you have a coworker or someone in your home who is aggressive, they got that like aggressive energy when they get upset, or maybe they're feeling sad, you start to take in that energy. So another success would be able to have the capacity to be around people that are struggling and not have it affect your own emotional state. You're able to be strong, you're able to be steady, and you're able to hold space for that. So, an example of what you just shared is that kid that's like, I don't want to do my homework, and the parents are going back and forth, right? A success for the parent would be able to be strong, steady in their grounded place and hold space for their child's emotions around not wanting to do the homework, but not
Hmm.
taking it in as frustration, not taking in or on that emotion of their child and then projecting it back at them.
Which is often what happens,
Mm-hmm.
and then it escalates, and then it's bad. Carlee Meyers, my guest. We're going to wrap this up in a few minutes, but I want to give you a chance to plug your website and anything else. I know you have a consultation that you offer people, which I would encourage people to take advantage of. I think you'd really, if nothing else, you'd have a nice conversation. Probably get some really good help here from Carlee. So talk about that. It's stresslessco.com, which is coming up
Yeah.
underneath us if you can see that.
Yep.
Here it comes. Here it
So
comes. Yeah.
stresslessco.com/apply for that
Okay.
specific offer. So what I'm offering is actually a complimentary stress assessment, where it's a 30 to 45-minute phone call where we hop on the phone and we get to the root of what's causing the overwork, the exhaustion, the stress for you.
Mm-hmm.
I hold energetic space for you. I listen deeply, and then together we get to the root of why you haven't found that peace and that freedom that you desire yet. Yet is the key word. So you can visit stresslessco.com/apply. You'll just fill out that application, and should it be a good fit for working together, a member of my team will be in touch within 24 to 48 business hours.
You got anything special coming up? Like anything beyond your normal stuff, or
So we've got the Selfish Philly conference coming up on October 1st. So it's a bit a ways, but we're getting ramped up
be
for it.
here
We're getting
before we know
excited
it?
about it.
It will be here
Yep.
before we know it.
Dr. Stephen Green will be there. Make the Grade will
Oh, can
be
you
there
believe?
as
Yes,
well.
I am very much looking forward to. Hope it might be the next time I leave my house here, my office, but hopefully not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about that for a minute, and then we're gonna wrap this up for today. So what Selfish
Yeah.
Philly is about? What? It's
Selfish
about? Is
Philly
it about
is
being selfish?
so it is really about reclaiming the word selfish. So it is the self-care conference for women in Philadelphia, 2021. This will be our second annual conference. And The reason that we've chose that name is actually because women are typically called three things when they're being insulted. They are called fat, they are called crazy, or they are called selfish. Now, there's a lot of people addressing fat. Wonderful. A lot of great body positivity movements going on. Nike, I believe it was, did an incredible commercial on crazy. Show them what crazy is, but no one's talking about the word selfish. And so this conference is all about how do you take care of yourself and meet the needs of others? How do you reclaim the word selfish to say, wait, I have to do this in order to be the best leader, the best parent, the best mom, the best business owner, whatever it is that I can possibly be.
And that is October 1st.
October 1st.
It's a
the
Friday.
day-long
I
event.
happen to know that. Yes. Awesome.
Yep,
It's in Center City. It's in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Wow.
And I can make sure that you get the link. But if you search for it on Eventbrite, it should come right up for you.
Awesome. Well, let me just plug something here. Thursday, 8 p.m., I will be back with the usual Thursday night live event. This week, my guest is Carlee Meyers. Ken has a cool service. It's called Apex Leadership Academy. They help teach kids leadership skills. They also bundle that with fundraising and some other positive things. He's got a compelling story and a very motivational kind of person. So I'm looking forward to having him back. This is it. So Carlee, let's do this here. Ready? I like that. I don't want to stereotype the stress movement because I know it's way more than just listening to a Tibetan chime. But sometimes it doesn't take a lot. Like you don't have to sit there and meditate for 2 hours to do a change of state. Sometimes it's just a couple deep breaths. Sometimes it's just collecting yourself. It's just hard to do when you're in a stressed out, agitated state. You know, I understand that. All right. We're going to wrap it up here. Let's see what I got here.
Well, I do want to say thank you so much for having me. And thank you for the comments that came in. It was really fun to read some of those.
Yes, it's good to see some of our friends out there taking the time to check in. Parents, anybody else listening, if you have further questions for Carlee, I would just reach out. I can get your email or obviously go to Stresslessco.com. I'll be back here Thursday night. In the meantime, there's all kinds of things going on in the education world. I'm not going to get into them now. There's been a lot of announcements, a lot of news, a lot of press releases, all sorts of things. If you're taking midterms, kids, good luck. This is a time of year you got to work on your time management and your information management, your planning, and all this sort of stuff. Keep your stuff under control that way. Otherwise, I will see you Thursday. Carlee, thanks again. Tied for most appearances on the Make the Grade live podcast combo. See if you can take the lead at some point before the other two people you're tied with. But it's not a competition. But I'm just throwing it out there. I'm bringing it up mostly because I appreciate how generous you are with your time, and not just with your time, but what you give in terms of value and information, and you know, if it helps anybody. We are both in the business of helping people. And sometimes it happens very subtly, sometimes it happens dramatically, and sometimes you don't know when it's going to happen. And so the more opportunities that I can have or I can give people or you can take advantage of, Carlee, everybody else, to do this, I think it just brings the whole tide of happiness up. And that's really my goal. I do it in more of an academic space. Carlee's doing it in more of a personal health space, but we're all really doing the same thing in a way. All right. Thanks again. Let's see if I got anything here. Here we go. Here's the Make the Grade theme song. See everybody Thursday, if not before. Thank you very much. See you next time.